Hello humans, and welcome back to another episode of Sparks Conversation. Hope you're having a good day, a good life where we are in this world. It's currently a Sunday, it's very cold, and I am in the dark as per with my ring light on, and I'm about to talk about a topic that is very current at the moment. Obviously, well not obviously, but at the moment I'm coaching a lot of people who are looking to lose body fat, okay? And we see more often than not, people get very much fixated on the scales. And I say fixated in a loose term, okay? Because it is addictive. Like, we associate the main metric of success within a dieting phase to the scale. I don't know why it is. There's probably some psychological reason for it, but could be that it's the first thing we do when we in the day after we've obviously gone for a wee and done other business. But it has such an impact on how we feel and how we approach the day afterwards that we really need to understand why it might go up and why it might fluctuate. Because if we look at scale weight and across like a period of time, for pretty much anyone, I don't know anyone who's just had linear day-to-day fat loss for a prolonged period of time, we'd be looking at the graph going up and down on a daily basis, okay? Because as I'm going to speak about later on, there's a number of factors as to why this is the case. And obviously, what we'd want to happen would be, yes, those lines on a daily or every other day are going up and down, but over a prolonged period of time, whether it's a week, whether it's a month, the average of those is coming down, okay? And this is what I try and kind of speak to my clients about on a regular basis, because if we don't, and we get fixated on the micro weight, so the daily weight, we very quickly have our day impacted by a number, by a reading on a scale which could have been put in a different place, could have been a completely different scale if you're with like a partner or you're in their house. And in terms of what can impact scale weight, there is tons. There's literally so many different impacting factors on scale weight. The first one would probably be the amount of food you're eating, obviously. Like, for example, a lot of clients, I said over Christmas, like, you can do in essence what you want. I'm not going to beat you up about it. I'm not going to really kind of put that rigid line in the sand that you need to track and you need to be accountable. You do you do how you do what you see fit. And if you overindulge, that's fine. We'll do what we do when we get back. If you manage to keep it in check, that's absolutely brilliant. But chances are, after you've had a period of higher calories, your scale weight will go up. You'll have more carbohydrates, you'll have more fats, and overall that will mean that you will potentially store more glycogen, okay? And if we're coming from a position in a dieting phase where potentially carbohydrates are restricted, if we then go into a period where we are having more carbohydrates, it would make sense that our body would naturally store some of those in our muscles, because we can store tons, anywhere between kind of 400 to 900 grams, depending on the size of you, of glycogen within the muscle, within our body, okay? And of course, there is other places that we store it in the liver, and these can fluctuate massively because when we absorb carbohydrates, we obviously bring in water with it. Anywhere between 2.5 to 4 grams of water, I think, per carbohydrate that we store. So this is where you see that, yes, we might be gaining weight, scale weight through carbohydrates, we're also gaining it through water fluctuations. And that's not even thinking about, for example, hydration status, whether you're overhydrated, whether you drank more the day before. That's just purely talking about from a food standpoint, okay? So carbohydrates and obviously calories will impact your scale weight massively. And this is another interesting point, because at some point during a dieting phase, you'll probably have like a period called a refeed or a diet break where you will have higher food, because any coach in their right mind would understand that most people cannot diet for months on end without a break, psychologically and physically, because you'll feel tired, lethargic, you'll hate everything about the process. So these planned breaks will mean, yes, higher calories, but it will also mean you might gain some scale weight. You're probably not gaining fat unless you are overindulging. We want you to, from a coaching standpoint. Another reason that you could have gained scale weight is training inflammation. So whenever we train, whenever we do cardio, whenever we do resistance training, we are creating inflammation in our body. If you have gone through a hell of a leg session, for example, your body in the short term is going to hold on to inflammation. And that's going to mean that you are going to be retaining water around those body parts. And if we are training legs, that's pretty much like 50% of your body is going to be retaining water. And inevitably, the next day, you will be up in scale weight. So you could nail every single calorie that you eat. You could train really hard, which you should be doing, but you could wake up heavier the next day. Is that a bad thing? Because no, eventually your body will dissipate that information over time and your scale weight will drop. Because of course we want to make sure that training is there and it is adequate within a dieting phase. Otherwise we're going to be in a really big trouble when it comes to muscle retention. So training, both cardiovascular and resistance-based training will really impact your scale weight. So yeah, take that with a pinch of salt. Next one is your hydration status. Obviously, we've talked about water a little bit when we're talking about carbohydrates and food, but obviously, if you're drinking a ton of water, you're going to be super, like really full of water, okay? And yes, our body is good at auto-regulating that and managing it, but that will have a direct impact on scale weight. And I often say that, like, if you train really late in the evening, let's say 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and you're drinking maybe a litre, 2 litres whilst you're training, chances are it's definitely going to impact your scale reading. And of course that goes the other way. And this is where you hear horror stories about people, for example, kind of Weight Watchers or Slimming World, where they have those weekly weigh-ins where it's almost like forced crucifixion because you're doing it in front of everyone. People will not drink the day before. 24 hours of no water, of course you're going to drop weight. And this is where measuring the scale weight as the primary metric is absolute dog shit. Next one, obviously, toilet habits, okay? So if you are potentially in a dieting phase, sometimes people suffer with constipation, okay? Like, because you're eating less food, you're eating less fiber and less food volume overall, your body gets very good at adapting to what it is given. So therefore, it will pretty much use everything that you're giving it. And this is where, more so when you're at the really low end calories, so for example, maybe below 1,600, your toilet habits will be all over the place. You won't be going to the toilet as frequently as you would if you're eating around maintenance calories. And likewise, if you haven't gone for a wee before you weigh yourself, of course your bladder is full, there's going to be weight in there. And this is, again, like, this is where if you're weighing yourself in the morning, you should probably try and go to the toilet beforehand, but you can't kind of dictate when you're naturally going to kind of go for a number 2. Let's talk about that. So toilet habits will have a massive impact on your scale weight, and that's why you need to take it, again, with a pinch of salt. Another one that is obviously going to be really high up the list is sodium. So salt, basically. So sodium has a huge impact on our water retention, okay? So if you have a really salty day, salty meal within a day, for example, you go out for a burger, chips, it's probably going to mean that you're having more sodium than you normally would. What this will mean is your body will supercompensate and it will retain water, again, impacting your scale weight. A lot of these fluctuations will come down to water retention unless you are being very meticulous with your tracking and your level of accuracy. I know some guys that track their salt, potassium, and magnesium, everything, their water to pretty much a milligram, and that will enable them to get kind of a little, pretty much as accurate as they can, but they'll still wake up the next day up and down. So salt has a huge impact, and this is where, again, you just need to be aware, right, so I've gained 0.6 on the scale. Why could that be? Okay, so I went out to Wagamama's last night. I've got no way of tracking what they have, but no way of tracking what sodium they put on. Obviously, you can see the calories online, but let's say you've put soy sauce on it, you've used reduced salt soy sauce, but still, that's more sodium than you're used to. So that's probably going to mean that you're going to retain water. It's just the way it is. And again, we move on. Last one, well, not the last one, but one of the main ones for women, that is your menstrual cycle. So women will retain most water, which will result in increased scale weight during the luteal phase. And this will obviously mean that your scale weight goes up. So it's not always best to kind of, 1, fixate over the scale weight during this time if you're a woman and you track this, and 2, just understand that your scale weight will probably go up during this period, and then you'll know naturally when it will come down. And this is where tracking it for a female over a prolonged period of time will be super important, because you can almost predict what's going to happen. And if you can predict it, you can reduce the stress that the client has, which will subsequently kind of make them enjoy the process a little bit longer. And the last one is stress, okay? Like, stress has a huge impact on your scale weight. That, along with sleep, I think are the 2 ones that really do make a huge difference. If you have really high cortisol, you're not sleeping, they all feed into each other and you'll get in a really bad position where you're not recovering, you're not sleeping well, you're super stressed, cortisol's high, and your body will just retain inflammation. It won't be able to buffer all of that work and all of that stress that you're putting on it. So this is where kind of, if you're really wanting to nail your scale weight and your readings, is to make sure your sleep is good and make sure that your stress is as low as it can be within the current climate, because we're in a recession, which is not great. So those are the kind of the main things that I would think about when I was working with a client. I'd be reverse engineering, why do I think that they have gained scale weight? Firstly, I'll be thinking, is it actually, have they gained fat? Has anything within their calorie tracking, within their food diary told me that they are over consuming food? If they have, that's absolutely fine. We'd probably just address it and say what the crack is. But outside of that, you need to be comparing scale weight, obviously over an average, over a prolonged period of time that it's going down. And you want to be making sure that you're cross-analyzing different data sets. So let's say weight is one data set. We'll be looking at physique updates here, and you might also be taking measurements. Personally, I would say physique photos and scale weight are probably your best readings. Of course, measurement is a good one, but at some point, like, you're going to be growing muscle and it might not be the best measurement. But again, those three would be the kind of bread and butter of any kind of fitness process. I would say the best one is a physique update. Like, you're going to see a lot from a physique update over a period of time that is going to give you the information you need. As long as someone is potentially not getting fat within reason, outside of a phase that you want them to get slightly heavier, that would be your best reference point to see whether you have lost fat or gained weight. Again, even with photos, there's huge variability in what we can see and what can impact that image. For example, all of the things that I've noted in impacting scale weight will have the direct same impact on the way you look in those photos. So again, it's pretty much down to your coach, or if it's yourself doing it, you need to understand that, right, I'll take these with a pinch of salt. I had a poor night's sleep last night. I've not slept very well for the past week. That's why I'm looking a little bit softer and my scale weight's a little bit all over the place. So those are some of the reasons that you might be stressing about your scale weight, and a couple of reasons why, and an understanding into what causes your scale weight to fluctuate so much. There's very little you can do. Okay, so you just need to kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy the process, and just understand that if you put in the work and nail the variables over time, you'll be able to get to the desired results you want. So that is the end of today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're new around here, give me a like, give me a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That would help me out a lot. But other than that, if you want online coaching from me or one-to-one coach, just give me a message on social media or follow the links down below and you'll be able to get in touch with me. But other than that, don't worry too much about your scale weight. If you need me, give me a shout and I'll speak to you all soon. Peace.